back to Vertical South. It's John here in the backyard. I'm about to make some wooden climbing holds out of this piece of wood here. We're going to start with some foot chips and then continue the series on into crimps, rails, pinches, and maybe even some slopers if we get some carving tools. So if you're interested in this content, be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and stick along for the series. Alright, let's get cutting some wood. Okay, so the cuts I'll be making are on this table saw that I've got here. If you're new to woodworking or you've never really used a powered table saw before, you can make all these same cuts with a hand saw. A good rule of thumb that I've heard from other woodworkers on YouTube is if you don't feel comfortable making the cut, just don't do it. There's no reason to put yourself in any danger. If you're a kid watching this video, make it with hand tools, ask your parents first, don't use any power tools. The first cut I'm going to make, I'm going to switch this camera around, is I'm basically going to set the depth of the foot chip. You can see already here there's a split in the wood that these two pieces have been laminated together. I'm essentially just going to cut this piece of wood to this depth, and we're going to have a really beefy foot chip, basically a long strip of wood right here that we're going to be able to part out and make probably about 5 chips out of. So my first cut I'm going to make, because my board is wider than it is long, I'm going to use my miter block here to push the wood through the saw blade. So the first thing to do is to set the saw blade length to the height of the wood and very barely higher. Because this is a really hard piece of wood and this saw blade is pretty old, I might actually end up doing this in 2 passes. But let's go ahead and see how this works out, and I'm going to make this first cut. Okay, so the saw here really had no issue getting through this thick, hard lumber, or I guess piece of wood really. And now I have this long strip, and you can see that we can part this off into basically like 2-inch little sections. So this next operation will also be made with the miter block. I'm going to lower down the saw blade to just barely above the height of this piece of wood, and then we'll start making some cuts. Okay, so now I'm ready to make some cuts. I'm cutting this into widths of 2 inches. So if you can believe it, we basically have a foot chip already with just kind of 2 operations. Now this doesn't look very good. You'd hit it with some sandpaper and we'd have to set screw some holes in there. But just as simple as that, you can make 100 of these for your home wall pretty easily. But we're gonna do a little bit more to it than this and add some more interesting details. So because my fence is really small and janky, I've basically extended it using this clamp and another board, which is going to allow me to keep my precious climbing fingers away from the saw blade. I've got my saw blade set to 45, and we're going to put some 45-degree bevels on the edge of this foot chip to kind of make it a little bit more interesting, so it's not just 90-degree blocks. Alright, so I'm ready to make this cut. If I had another clamp, I'd actually be clamping this piece of wood to the fence, but instead I'm going to use this other piece of wood here, kind of as like a hand clamp. So that way my hands are nowhere near the blade when this operation is happening. And hopefully this chip will stay in place and I can take an edge off of it. Alright, so what do we have here now? So on one side of this chip, now we've got this nice beveled edge. That's like a 45-degree edge. I think what I'll do is put another one on this side, and then before you know it, we'll have 4 different sides on the same chip. That'll allow us to kind of set it in different orientations and get a different climbing feel out of it. Alright, so this is what it looks like now. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I didn't completely mess that up and put the bevels on the wrong side. So I really just put the piece of wood on there and just slapped it on. But now instead of anything else, we have an inset crimp, or maybe a jug this way. This will probably end up in the scrap pile, but I'm going to do these same 2 operations with our other piece of wood and see what we can get. See if I can get it right. Alright, so this is what we've got here. Pretty cool if you ask me. If I'm going to do another one, I'm going to take down this depth from being like 1 1/4 to probably just 1/2 inch. As I'm making these chips for Colin, who you've seen on the home wall. He normally climbs it around V7 to V9, so he doesn't really need a chip this big, but it's still nice to have. Alright, so the final step to completing our foot chip is I'm going to take this file right here, and I'm going to break down any of the sharp corners that may splinter or crack. So it's very easy to do. I'm just going to take that piece of wood and rub it down against rub it across the file here. Okay, now I'm ready to basically countersink the screw holes that will attach it to the wall. Basically we'll only need 2, and I want them to be on the face of this piece of wood. So I'm just going to hold it steady, start with this, this is like an 8-gauge drill bit with a little countersinking job right there, and it should get the whole operation done in just one go. I have a backer plate here, basically to protect from the blowout of the screw hole. So we should be good to go. We'll just need 2 of those, and this will be ready to go on the wall. Well, if you're here, it smells like I'm starting a fire because how much friction's going through there. I'm going to take my file and just break off all these little bits here. Sorry, that was off camera. Boom. And if you look at that, very little blowout on the back side, nothing you can't break off with your fingers. It's fun in my neighborhood. Saturday's the project day, and everyone's working hard on their house or on their projects. You hear a lot of power tools, which is kind of cool to me. So here you have it, our foot chip. We got 4 different sides. You could set it this side up, this side, here, whatever you like. Let's go get a sunlight shot of it. So there you have it. If you like the video, be sure to leave a comment in the section below and tell me what you want to see next. I was thinking about continuing how to make smaller, more engaging foot chips, but we can move on to crimps or rails. Rails, super easy. Hooded crimps, things like that. I'm excited to get creative. I intend to be building some volumes as well. So stick along, let us know if you want to see it, and see you on the next one.